Good evening, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of our rant series. We got the Hollywood Squares going yet again. I think we're going to make this a Monday night thing if we can. So we got, let's see, from top to bottom, at least the way I'm looking at it, we got Chris Allo, Ryan Skow, Nick Franco wearing the Motorhead shirt. How's everybody doing tonight? You guys ready to rant?
Absolutely.
Instead of saying ready to roll, it's now ready to rant, right? That's what we got. So what I have tasked everybody with this week is to come up with three, and if we have time, we'll squeeze more in, but at least three concerts that sucked for whatever reason. So it could be the bands were terrible, or the band was terrible, or you got dragged to a show you didn't want to go to, and it sucked just as bad as you thought it was going to be, or some weird circumstances getting there, or something happening at the show or after the show, ruin the whole evening for you. There's all sorts of reasons why a concert could suck, but we're going to let everybody tell their little stories. So let's go. Nick, I'm going to have you go first today. Since you were the last to arrive, you're the first one put on the spot. So Nick's going to kick us all off today.
All right, cool. So I'm going to go with something that occurred back on May 28th, 2013. I was at my yearly trek to the Maryland Death Fest, which is an extreme festival that takes place in Baltimore every Memorial Day weekend, unless there's a pandemic, going on. And they used to have the concert outside, which was amazing. And you'd walk through the streets, busy downtown, people are coming home from work, everything is going on, and you hear like screaming death metal across, just bouncing off all the avenues. And it was pretty incredible that they remained that way for a few years. They're no longer outdoor. One of those nights, Venom was playing, and they were in the middle of the song Warhead, which I had to look that up. I didn't remember. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, I don't think they had played their classics yet. It was late in their set, and all of a sudden the festival decided, or the city pressured them, or whatever it was, and they cut their power in the middle of the freaking song. Cut their power and turned them off, go home, good night, F you Venom. And it was one of the most angering, aggravating things, because they were tight, they were awesome, and they were just about to reach all of their classics, and they got cut. So that's my first one. Very, very aggravating.
That's not good. Yeah, you don't want to cut Venom's set, right? But with their headliner, right? So
they were the headliner, yeah.
I remember hearing about that, and I almost went. I was glad I didn't, and then I went when Venom came back to Maryland in 2015, I think, or 2016.
Yeah, it was,
with Mayhem.
Whatever year it was, and I was really, really worried that the same thing was going to happen, but thankfully it didn't.
Yeah,
that sucks.
You were there, right, Ryan?
I was, and I had to have quite a few beers after that to kind of like take the edge off. I mean, it's just, we say Venom, it's just Kronos and friends, but it was still like they sounded great.
Yeah. Well,
great. The set was kicking ass. The crowd was loving it. And then I think it was like a 10 o'clock curfew. I don't remember the time, but yeah, the second 10 o'clock hit, it was like they shut everything off. No warning or nothing.
Very sad.
Not cool. All right, Ryan, you're up.
All right. I tried to pick three from different sucked for different reasons. So the first one I went with is let's see if I get the date here. It was November 1999. I was still in high school, so I'm only 38. So I think it was in 10th or 11th grade. And I went with a bunch of friends to see Metallica with the Symphony Orchestra at Madison Square Garden. Ticket cost me over $100 when you're working at ShopRite. It's a lot of fucking money. And I thought the whole thing sucked. I have no problems. I love classical music. I have no problems with like orchestral like pairing up with bands. But with Metallica and them, it just did not. That music does not work with, at least in my opinion, didn't work with the orchestra. It sounded shitty. The vibe was weird. I don't know. It was a ton of money at the time, and it did nothing for me.
That was, 99, that was like the novelty right back then. It's like, oh, everybody's got to do the rock or metal with orchestra. And quite frankly, it's cool to see once in a blue moon. I don't get it, to be honest with you. To me, it just doesn't do anything for me. Especially a band like that with their music is not made for that type of.
Not at all. No, it's
right.
Some of the slower songs work better, but like a lot of the older songs are obviously the best Metallica songs, and they're also a lot faster, so they're very busy. So there's no room to like work in like an orchestra because it doesn't work with the guitar. There's just no space in the mix, and it sounded like shit in my opinion. It was like everything happening at once, It's like an old the old Bugs Bunny when the guy the one guy band the drum on the back and the two everything just happened in a one.
The band that I found could do that mixing of orchestral and metal the best. You know where I'm going with this is Therion. They were the beginning and end of that. They did so well.
I thought they were going to say Blind Guardian, but I did kind of
they do it well also. Yep.
They do. But Therion synthesized the two elements into their songwriting. It's not like they took existing metal songs and put an accompaniment with it like Metallica did. They built their songs around it much better than adding it sometimes. You're right.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
All right, mine is a fairly recent one. I can't believe it's already been 5 years, though. September 30th and October 1st, 2015, I was aboard the Norwegian Sky for the Motorhead cruise. And it was a great time. It was a great show. 4 days of metal. With these metal cruises, if anybody ever gets the chance, they are a ton of fun. But I was absolutely crushed watching Motorhead. Lemmy was very sick at the time. He looked half asleep. He sounded like he had a lisp. His vocals were totally labored. He looked and sounded like he had a stroke. He just had no power coming out of his voice. He was wheezing. I'll be completely honest. It looked like he died and nobody told him. I mean, it was awful. It was heartbreaking to watch, and it was really sad. And I got a buddy, James, who always likes to say, oh, well, sometimes for certain bands, once he saw them, he's like, well, I don't need to tarnish that memory. And most of the time, 99% of the time, I don't agree with that. But this was my 27th and 28th time seeing Motorhead. And I swore that night I would never see them again, because if that was the way Lemmy was going to be. And I kind of felt, to be honest, like, on one hand, a lot of people were like, oh, he went out, because he died a few weeks later. Like, oh, it was great. He went out the way he wanted to go, which is, on one hand, is understandable. But at the same time, it's like, well, but actually you left some of your fans with a horrible memory. And listen, to be honest, it's not like Lemmy was playing for free. I paid to be on that boat. I paid to see Motorhead, and it totally sucked. So that's my pick for my third worst show.
Those are great points. Yeah, I mean, because the fans are paying good money. They want lasting memories. And I get you want to die doing what you love, Lemmy, but I don't want to see Lemmy up there half dead, right?
It was heartbreaking. I mean, if I hadn't already paid for the cruise, I wouldn't have gone, to see Motorhead. But I was like, after the first one, I was like, well, I've got to get my money's worth. But yeah, it was just awful and just really heartbreaking to see somebody who was so powerful and now is just like literally fading away.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
All right. Like I was telling the guys before we went live here, I have like 9 in my list, and I haven't yet decided which 3 I'm going to talk about today. So I'm just going to randomly pick one from my list. I'm trying to remember what year this was. It was either 2016. I think it was 2016, maybe 2017. I don't remember exactly when. But it was Dream Theater at the Beacon Theater. Now, I'm a big Dream Theater fan, as all you guys know. I've seen them live more than any other band, like 20 some odd times. And this was the tour for their double album, The Astonishing, which I like all the Dream Theater albums a lot. Don't really like that album. To me, they're really only missing their catalog. And my brother's like, you want to go see him? They're going to play the whole album at the Beacon. It might be cool, like, all right, maybe that'll help me kind of discover this album and gain an appreciation for it. And we went and we had seats like the 3rd row or something like that, right? So right there. And I've never been more bored at a show in my life.
Wow.
I thought maybe it would help me to enjoy this album a little bit, to see it played live, and it was even worse. They played the entire thing start to finish. They didn't even talk to the audience. There was no break at all in between any of the songs. And here it was, almost 2 hours of this boring, dreadful album nonstop. And I have never said, Dream Theater fans go to Dream Theater concerts and they're hung on every note, everything that's happening, right? That's the way the fans are, right? Into the musicianship. I spent the entire concert looking at my watch, wondering how soon can I get out of here? And in fact, I wound up leaving like 40 minutes before the show ended so I can go catch an earlier train to get home because I just couldn't take it anymore. I was bored beyond belief, and I've never, ever said that at a Dream Theater show. I mean, they totally didn't engage the fans at all. It's one thing, it's bad enough that album is not very good, in my opinion. But hearing it live was just worse, and you felt like you were trapped in a room with nowhere to go.
Wow.
And I was just like, I'm out of here. I can catch an early train. I'll get home an hour and a half sooner. I can get to bed and forget about this whole evening. And that's exactly what it was. So, yeah, I've 20 some odd times seen the band. I think about like 25 or 27. And that is the only show I've ever seen by them that I just did not like. All the others I've loved, but that was just like no good.
Wow. That sounds like how I would have been if Judas Priest actually took, made good on their threat and played that whole awful Nostradamus record.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad that they did not.
Cooler heads prevailed.
Yes, exactly. Dream Theater should have taken note from that.
Conversely to these points, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's next choices by saying this, but when Iron Maiden came out with A Matter of Life and Death, they played that album in its entirety.
Yeah.
On tour, and there was a lot of complaining. I heard it in the garden. There was a ton of people complaining, and I say pshaw or whatever, some word like that, because I thought it was a good move because it was a good album. It was a bold move.
I like that album too.
Yep, it was a bold
It's one thing if the album is bad, but if the album is good, play the whole damn album. I'm
I
all for
agree.
it.
Let them live in the present. These guys play some of the, especially bands with long careers. But yeah, it worked when they did it, but I could see it not working with a lot of other bands.
Yeah.
I remember it was either Gigantor or Sounds of the Underground when Dream Theater played at Mid-Hudson Civic Center probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that great that day, but I actually, probably the only time in my life, I slept through their entire set. I sat down in the back of the arena there, and I blinked my eyes, and like an hour and a half had gone by. And,
all right, so my question for you is, how did you sleep? Because that was the loudest concert I've ever been to in my life, and it was like 1,000,000 degrees in there. How could you sleep during that show?
I think the heat is what knocked me out because I wasn't feeling
it had
great.
to have been.
I'm really only like early Dream Theater, to be honest. I mean, I had earplugs in too, but I think I sat down and like no force on earth could have kept me awake. I like felt like it was like literally like one of those things where you're like, oh shit, when you wake up abruptly and like, oh, they're done. All right.
Every band who played that day was so painfully loud, and it was so hot. I mean, that was like mid-August or something, right? Wasn't it early mid-August?
It was absurdly hot in there. Ridiculous.
It was awful. It was awful. Oh, Jesus. All right, Nick, you're up.
So I'm going to jump back in time to July 19th, 2001. At that time, I was a massive Cradle of Filth fan. I still have a lot of respect for them and still enjoy them. But I was getting ready to see them at Hammerstein Ballroom. The place was packed with goths and black metal fans and girls with black nail polish and fishnets on. It was, pretty much across the board a goth / black metal crowd. And one of the opening acts was the band Vision of Disorder, VOD. I think they're from New Jersey. Hardcore. Yo, word, like the whole fucking tough guy hardcore shit. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have my cup of coffee with that style back in the day, but to say that this band did not fit in with that crowd and that vibe and that night is absolutely an understatement. They were terrible, and they were trying so hard to get everybody into it with, come on, with all this crap. And what you see is these depressed goth people like, no. And, people were shouting stuff. I mean, there were probably a few people there for them, but it was pretty much a disaster. And it was one of the longest, 45 minutes of my life, just waiting for these people to finish.
And what's bad is when you have a band like that that's not a good fit for a bill, and they're going over really bad, and they try way too hard to get the audience into it, and all they get is jeers and a lot of shit from the audience. That's really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable.
Yep. And it was almost 20 years ago. I mean, in those days I didn't drink. So I remember just this uncomfortable vibe, and I was like, oh, please, they could have had any good band. I do think that there was some sort of merging of management or something that brought them together. I was trying to look it up before and see, but I didn't really research it thoroughly enough. But I think I read that there was some sort of merging of management of some type, and people can correct me on the comments. but something brought them together, but it wasn't it wasn't a good fit.
I was going to say, Nick, if I'm not mistaken, I was at that show.
Yeah.
I remember Cradle playing. I remember Nile and God Forbid opening. But I have and I've seen Vision of Disorder a bunch of times, but I have absolutely no memory of them playing that night.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, and I just blocked it out. But I definitely remember. I remember too. I went to Hammerstein 2 nights in a row. First night was Cradle of Filth, and the next night was Rammstein played.
Well, hopefully I'm not making an error, because even though I didn't drink then, I've drank a lot in between then and now. But I'm
no, I mean, they certainly could have played, and I just could have completely blocked it out.
Yeah,
I'm amazed that Cradle of Filth even headlined Hammerstein.
Dude, Cradle of Filth in 2000, 2001 were huge.
Yeah, like yeah, deservedly so. They were incredible.
Like, they were one of the biggest selling T-shirt bands at Hot Topic.
Yes.
They were. You guys remember? They were massive. I mean, you would.
Midian, right?
Midian came out in 2000. Wearing Cradle shirts.
I think it was Midian.
Yeah, that's a great album. The one before, Beauty and the Beast, those are great albums. So yeah, I think
those are very good albums. Yeah, I just don't remember them being big enough to headline places like that.
They were big.
Probably because every time I've seen them, they played in much smaller places.
Right. Yeah, they were. You know, they got up to almost, breaking big. So did Dimmu Borgir.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, for both bands, it both collapsed.
It kind of crested and they came back down.
Yeah.
I think both bands tried to make their music a little bit too accessible and moved away from what got them to where they were at. I think that's what happened with both of those bands.
And Cradle's got back though. Their last couple Cradle albums, if you haven't heard them,
they're all pretty good actually. Yeah, they're all pretty good.
Yeah. When you dip your toes in the mainstream, when you get up to that level, you become beholden to very fickle audiences. As we know, our true metal bands and rock bands like this, like, their fan base stays. Right. But when you get up into that realm, you're beholden to trends. And that's what ultimately I think the trends moved on,
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ryan, what's your choice? Next one.
All right. This is one I don't usually admit to having seen, so I'm going to admit it right now so thousands of people can watch it and comment on it. Back in 2012, a couple friends of mine that I don't usually go to concerts with because it's not a metal show. I'll go to non-metal shows, but this one is way out in left field. They're like, you want to go to Bethel Woods? Bethel Woods doesn't usually have concerts that I go to. A couple classic rock shows. So I don't even know what was playing. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Ticket was actually free. I'll go, whatever it is, I'll go. It's good to see you guys. I'll have a couple beers, couple drinks. Well, it turns out it was a concert called Summerlin. And the lineup, and I had to write it down because I don't remember. I blocked it out of my memory. Was, unlike admitting this, as long as nobody's listening, it was Lit, Marcy Playground, Sugar Ray, Everclear, and Gin Blossoms, which I hate in the 90s. I hate today. From the moment I was born until this very moment in time, I've hated that 90s alternative with the power of 1,000 suns. I don't know why I went. I mean, I had a good time with my friends. It was good to see people at concerts I don't usually see, so I'm not going to talk, shit about that. But the music, it was like someone just took like a railroad spike, stuck it in my ear, and just ding, 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 for like 3 or 4 hours. It was hell.
I'd rather see VOD.
Well, better than you and me, man. You than me.
I push that on anybody. I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck am I doing here? But other than hanging out with some good friends, but like as soon as the band started playing, I'm like, why the fuck did I come to this? This is terrible. These bands suck. Every moment of every band was just like, and they all had big hits in the 90s, so it's not like it was stuff that you wouldn't expect. I knew exactly what I was getting into once I found out who was playing, that is. And I still went and still sat there like, what the fuck is going on? But that's my second one.
That's a good one.
I don't know if any of us are going to top that one. So
self-inflicted all the way. Total my own fault, but there it is. It happened.
Wow.
All right, Chris, what do you can you follow that one up?
I can't. No, I can't. I mean, it's a band we all know and love, but it's a band at their absolute worst. It was July 7th, 1998. Of course, the 90s really was. I got a buddy that calls the 90s the Great Metal Famine, because people forget how uncool all the classic metal that we like was back then. And Iron Maiden and Dio, 10 years earlier, were both packing arenas, but it took both bands to play the Roseland Ballroom in New York City. Dio came out. The Dirty Deeds opened, and they were okay. Steve Harris was producing the band or something. Dio came out. He only had like 65 minutes, but they crushed it. They were on tour for that terrible album, Angry Machines. They didn't do anything from that record, but they did some really rare stuff like Straight Through the Heart, Shame on the Night, Mistreated, Catch the Rainbow. Plus they did Heaven and Hell, Neon Nights, Children of the Sea. I mean, it was a great 65-minute set. They go off, comes on, is Maiden with Blaze Bayley. My second time seeing Blaze. I seen him once on the X Factor tour, he was okay. The band was all right then. But man, this show was terrible. He completely sucked. He sounded shitty on every song. He had terrible stage presence. He just walked around like a total idiot on stage. They played 18 songs that night, but I walked out on track number 12. First, I had to sit through such gems as Future Real, The Angel and the Gambler. Is that even an Iron Maiden song?
Yes.
One of the three Maiden songs I don't like.
Future Real's good.
Strikes Twice, which
I like
wasn't
Future.
terrible. Kind of like that one. When Worlds Collide, my favorite must have been The Educated Fool. Finally, track 12 comes on, and he starts, Bass starts talking about this spiel about, here's an old one, and it's about war, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, all right, great. It's going to be, could be The Trooper, could be Aces High. No, it was Afraid to Shoot Strangers.
A great song, sir.
I hate that fucking song. So I turned to my buddies, and we all walked out. So, fuck Blaze Bayley. He's a nice guy. I've talked to him. I've interviewed him. But he sucked in Iron Maiden. And I'm 100% convinced that if anything ever happens to Bruce Dickinson, Steve Harris will purposely get the worst possible vocalist in the world, because I've heard the Steve Harris solo record, and that guy's even worse than Blaze Bayley. So I hope nothing ever happens to Bruce, because we will have the worst singer ever in Iron Maiden.
And Nick will probably back me up on this. Blaze is actually not a bad singer. He's just not a good. He's not a good Iron Maiden singer.
100%.
Right?
There's nothing wrong with him with his solo. Solo stuff's not bad.
Yeah.
But man, he's not the guy for Iron Maiden. Just not.
The first time I ever saw Iron Maiden was that X Factor tour.
Oh, really?
And I was 18. My mother was just allowing me to go to concerts. And, I took it, and it was at the Academy, and it was a small place.
That was.
Dude, Steve Harris was sweating on me. Steve Harris was sweating on me. And,
wow.
Like, I was that close to him, which was, a thrill. And I don't even remember how Blaze sounded because I was so in awe of being near,
right.
Dave and Steve and everything.
I was at that show too, Nick, and I can say that Blaze was definitely better. The Maiden set was better.
Yeah.
Everything was better about the X Factor tour, but that Virtual 11 was just painful.
Virtual 11, first time I saw it, Virtual 11. So it's I was very young, and it's just pure nostalgia. But then I saw him later with Bruce. First time I saw him with Bruce was with Halford and Queensryche in 99 or 2000. But since the first time I actually saw Maiden was with Blaze, it's like I can't make myself like, that sucked, because it was like still like first time seeing like, your gods, and I was young.
I get it. But the proof there, and there are the Blaze Bayley fans. There's even some people who like Blaze better than anybody, than Deanna or Dickinson, which I think is crazy. But the proof is, listen, there are 100 Maiden live records and live releases, right? There's a shit ton of them. There's not one single live release with Blaze Bayley. Not an EP, nothing.
What does that say?
Exactly.
He was the worst vocal. I like those two albums, but he was by a million times the worst vocalist they had of the three.
No, yeah. And the albums, there's some good material on there, but man, live, oof, especially on that Virtual 11. No wonder he got shit canned a couple months later, and thank God that brought Bruce back.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. When Bruce does those songs, they're great. Go ahead.
We got 8 minutes left, so we got to squeeze a couple in here. So, all right. So my number 2 is a pretty bad one. So we're gonna go back to March 19th, 1987, Mid-Hudson Civic Center, Poughkeepsie, New York. Poison and Rat.
Wow.
Oof. bad. So, I went to the show because I kind of thought Rat were okay at the time. I didn't mind them too much. I didn't like Poison at all, but my girlfriend at the time was like, she was into Poison. So I was like, we got to go. I was going to SUNY New Paltz at the time. So, 10 minutes away, whatever. Go to the show, drink a bunch of beers beforehand. We go in there. The place is packed with women, okay, and guitar player guys, right? That's basically the type of audience these two bands drew. And Poison opened up. And I thought they were pretty bad, only because I just don't like their music, but they were actually good at what they do. I guess we lost Ryan. And Rat comes on, and they were awful. I think the entire band was drunk or on drugs. They were up there. They were sloppy. People were booing. People were leaving. Wow. And, this is Rat we're talking about, who in 87, we're a pretty huge band for a couple of years. But you could almost see after that performance, and we left before the show was even over.
And that
was almost – what's that?
That was Mid-Hudson?
Mid-Hudson Civic Center.
Because I saw that same tour at the Garden. And, Rat was terrible.
Yeah, they were awful, right? They looked like they were loaded up there. Sloppy as anything. And people were booing. That's how bad they were. And we left. We didn't stay for the whole show. It was like, holy cow. And I walked out there saying, I can't believe this, but Poison were the better band tonight.
Wow.
And I don't like Poison at all.
Yeah, same here.
So, Nick, you're up.
So I just secured the date because I didn't know it, but it was it looks like it was February 28, 2004. I really wanted to see Moonspell perform on their tour supporting Opeth, and other than like a couple songs here and there in the 90s, I never got into Opeth. I didn't like them at all, and everyone around me loved them. And I know there's some Opeth fans here. So I went up there to the Palladium, and I was very tired from work. Saw Moonspell, loved it. Went back up in the seats. I'm like, all right, Opeth's going to perform. It's, to this day, pretty much the only concert I have ever, like Ryan said before, completely slept through. I went to sleep.
Wow.
And I don't know what it is. I probably love bands that are, twice as, I don't know, progressive or, long-winded. I don't know what, but they just don't connect with me to the point that I was finally like, I gave in to being tired and just like went to sleep. And I know a lot of people love Opeth.
I'll forgive you for this one.
They miss me. And they're great. I respect
that was Palladium in Worcester.
Yeah. Were you there?
I saw. I'm gonna have to join you on that one. I saw them. I was Enslaved and Opeth at the Starlin Ballroom, and Enslaved were great. And I love death metal, love prog, I love all that stuff. But I'm right there with you. They've never done a blessed thing for me, and I didn't like that show at all. Okay.
Both of you guys disappointed me tonight. I don't know.
I know. I'm sure we'll get a lot of hate for that.
Yeah.
I hope we do.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the fun part.
Ryan, what you got? We got 5 minutes left.
All right. The last one, real quick, is 2015. My friend Anik, every couple of years back, she would book a little festival in Montreal. It's my favorite festival I ever been to, called Wings of Metal. It was real intimate. But she would get a lot of bands over, even though the capacity of this venue was only like 200-300 people. She got Manila Road, Satan, Blitzkrieg, Angel Witch, Razor, Voivod, like all these classic bands would play these real intimate sets. And one year she got this band called Mephisto, who back in the 80s put out 2 demos that were like classic Bathory, Venom, like early Celtic Frost, a very obscure stuff, but like great, like early, like black thrash. And they hadn't done anything since like 1987. So she's like, they're playing their first ever show. They reunited. I'm going to have first time ever playing. They're playing my festival in Montreal. So they come over. They come out on stage, and it was like fucking Sam's Club Machine Head. The guitarist had this big Slash hat on. They slowed everything down. Everything was like this groove rock, like Stuck Mojo kind of stuff, which is fine if you're into it. But for a band that like, you hear their old demos, and it's like, Venom, old Bathory, stuff like that. They're coming out with these like slow trudging riffs, and just had zero personality with the audio, or, no personality, no real engagement with the crowd. And then I've come to find out later on that they were like the most difficult band to deal with, just absolute assholes. I don't want to talk too much shit here, put words in their mouth, but, and then the worst part is they filmed a little documentary about their first show, first time playing Canada. And I'm in the video, and there's a shot of me like getting real into this band. My friend sends this to me. He's like, what the fuck? I thought you hated this band. And I'm like, that had to be cut from another set that day. Something happened. I hated them, and I left like halfway through the set. I was out on the patio drinking. I'm like, I was framed. That was a total setup, and it's, it was hilarious. Now it's become like this in-joke among a couple friends about how I loved the Mephisto set, even though it was like one of the worst things I'd seen in my life. I was sitting there with like my mouth open, like, who the hell is this band? But
too funny.
News.
Chris, what do you got?
All right, I'll make it quick. May 22nd, 1996. It was a one-off show for Rob Halford. It was billed as Rob Halford, and it was supposed to have, was rumored that Tony Iommi was going to be a special guest. This was after the Fight Band, but 2 years before the 2 album came out. So me and a whole bunch of friends got tickets, but when we went there, it actually was the 2 band, and they played 10 songs in a row from the Voyeurs record. But again, this was 2 years before anybody had heard that record, and let's not kid each other, that album sucks. The Voyeurs record is shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat through songs that nobody had ever heard of, like I Am a Pig and Gimp and Stutter Kiss, and the booze just got louder and louder for the whole show. After 10 songs, Rob Halford didn't say anything. He said goodnight. He came back for the encore. He mentioned that Tony Iommi couldn't be there. They did 2 Sabbath covers and left. Lights went up, and everybody just started throwing shit at the stage. I saw a guy that had bought the Rob Halford shirt at the T-shirt stand. He lit it on fire and threw it into the stage.
Oh my God.
The promoters got on the PA and said, the police are coming. The show is over. Leave the concert hall. I interviewed John 5 about a year ago, and I asked him about it. He goes, oh, yeah, I remember that show. He's like, there was a riot after that show. I go, yeah, there totally was. And I said, what happened with Tony Iommi? He goes, oh, he was supposed to show up, but he couldn't get a flight. And then we talked about how the 2 thing really didn't work out too well, and that was it. But, yeah, that show was terrible.
Oh, God, that's great. We should probably do a part 2 of this because I think we're going to run out of time. But you guys want to do a part 2 of this?
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to do it like immediately? Or you want to do it like in a week or so?
I have to come up with a list.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
a few days.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll do that. So I'll save my last choice for part 2 of this. It's a Black Label Society one. You know what? Let me just start talking about it. So Black Label Society, Nokia Theater, October 26, 2005, shortly after Dimebag Darrell got shot and killed, which was tragic. They were good friends. He was really paranoid about going out on tour. It was New York City. He shows up at the Nokia Theater like 2 hours late for the show. And the rumor was that he was like so paranoid about going on stage because of what happened to Dime that he was drinking up a storm and was polluted drunk. They like carted him out on stage. He was red-faced, sweating profusely, and just looked like he was completely out of it through the